The fallout over the Brexit vote continues. I want to bring in our friend Ray Hurd right now to discuss the issue. Ray has worked on Fleet Street in the past over his long and storied media career. He also has ties to Britain and will be visiting England very soon. Ray, your thoughts on what happened last week? We keep hearing this was all about xenophobia. This is all about bigotry. That's why people voted to leave the European Union. Your thoughts?
I think it's right to say that the British people, and my family are there, and my son-in-law actually works with David Cameron. I think it's fair to say that resentment, legitimate resentment of immigrants, not just Muslim immigrants, but especially ones in Europe like Albania and countries like that, taking British jobs, was resented. We're witnessing exactly the same populist revolt with Donald Trump in the United States, as well on the left as Bernie Sanders. So what we saw in Britain is a reflection of what's happening in many parts of what I still call, and they call me xenophobic, the civilized world. In the civilized world, a lot of hardworking, regular people feel let down by the establishment, and the worst establishment probably in history is in Brussels, where the European Union has its headquarters. The Brits resented bureaucrats in Brussels telling them how much they had to pay for a pound of butter.
They banned the sale of a dozen eggs, Ray. You're not allowed to sell eggs by the dozen. You know how they got around it in Britain? They started selling a dozen eggs by weight.
Yes. So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that was the backlash. But I do feel that since David Cameron is still the Prime Minister, but he doesn't want to negotiate or start negotiating, a process that will last for years of getting Britain out of Europe, it doesn't happen overnight. I think there's a very good chance right now, Brian, that when Cameron's successor is chosen, I hope it's Boris Johnson, the former mayor of London, who led the Leave campaign, when the new Prime Minister is chosen, given how the Socialist Labour Party is in disarray against their clown of a leader, a guy called Corbyn, there may be an election in the United Kingdom before the end of the year in which the number one issue will be, should we leave or should we stay?
Right.
And if there is an election on that issue only, I think the stay group could win. So let
me pause you there, because I want to go back to populism, then we'll pick up on whether there will be another election. You mentioned Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. These are two different strains of populism, but they're part of it. In Britain, it was a populist move to say, let's leave, because the establishment were all saying you've got to stay, whether it's Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, the Prime Minister, the establishment media. You know, exactly. Ray, I keep saying that politicians can only ignore the people that they look down upon, the people that they rule for so long before those people will turn around and revolt. And I think that's what happened here.
And it's happening in France, in the Netherlands, even in Angela Merkel's Germany it's happening. It's not confined to the United Kingdom. Now, Scotland is in a curious position. The Scots now say they want to leave Britain and stay in Europe. That would take years to negotiate. People have to focus on how complex the process of leaving or getting accession to it, in Scotland's case, would be. So there might be this election in the United Kingdom on this only issue, and the Liberal Democrats, who could come back and do much better than they have for the last 20 or 30 years, they're sort of the third party. They are half Tory, half Labour. They could do very well if the election, as I expect it to be, is on this only one issue.
So you really think there could be an election on this? Because there's no need for an election. When was the last British general election? Was that 2013, 2014?
It was about just over a year ago, and all the polls were wrong. David Cameron won with a significant majority. The British electorate can be very fickle, like the Canadian electorate. But the other huge issue we must discuss, Brian, Fleet Street mainstream papers, now the tabloids were all saying leave, the Daily Mail and the Daily Mirror and the Sun saying get out. But the establishment press is making the point that young Britons, young people, say under 35 or 40, overwhelmingly voted to stay. That's true. But guess how many of them actually voted? That's 79 or 69% of a very low number. And if an election is held on the issue of leave or stay, the young voters who didn't turn out to vote this time, millions of them perhaps, will vote, and they will vote to stay.
That's plain dirty pool. I mean, they had their chance to vote this time. They didn't vote. They couldn't get off their couches. They couldn't get out in the rain. I understand that some parts of Britain had bad rainstorms and so on. Look, a day in Britain when it rains is called today. It rains all the time. So get off your couch, get out and vote. You don't get a mulligan when it comes to a referendum.
But don't forget that Parliament is supreme. Actually, there's no law that requires the British Parliament to obey the will of the people in this referendum.
I know. Well, I mean, that is the idea being put forward by the Remain side, the elites on the Remain side, saying, oh, the idea that this referendum is binding is ridiculous. Let's just ignore it. You can't do that, Ray. I mean, that is why the Leave side ended up winning, because Parliament rejected the real concerns of Britons over the EU trying to ban the pint, regulate the banana, regulate their tea kettles, regulate their vacuum cleaners. All of these things were little annoyances, and people would say, I'm sick and tired of this. And Parliament would say, well, tut-tut, I mean, what do you know? We'll just keep going with the EU.
There could be a new Parliament in which the only issue will be stay or go. The only issue, it'll be a one-issue election. And if that is the outcome, if we do have this election, and most MPs who are elected pledge to the voters that they will vote to stay, it could be a dog's breakfast. And I think that Obama bears a lot of blame for this. Obama doesn't like the Brits anyway. His father was a Kenyan nationalist who actually supported a rebellion against the Brits in Kenya. Obama got rid of Winston Churchill's photograph from the White House.
Well, the bust, yeah.
So I think that it isn't over till it's over. I think this is going to help Donald Trump significantly, because Trump hailed British Independence Day. He applauded them, and he wants to use this British referendum as a whipping device to beat Hillary Clinton in the big election. So you know what we may be looking at, Brian? The year 2016, if Donald Trump wins, and right now I would say it's 50-50 that he's going to win. If Britain votes to leave Europe and Trump becomes president in 1 year, 2016 is like 1914 World War I, like the crash of 1929, like the outbreak of World War II in 39, and even 68 and 90 when the Soviet Union imploded. This could be an epic year. And I applaud Boris Johnson. He ran a campaign to leave based on hope. He never was a fearmonger. Cameron, who should have known better, told everyone how bad things would be. And that was a self-fulfilling prophecy when you look at the stock market today. And I thank God in all her power and all her glory that I have a lot of gold. Because the only stable thing in the world today, Brian, is gold. And this goes back 5,000 years. It hasn't changed.
I have to ask you one more question before we leave, Ray. Mexico's president arrived in Quebec City today. He's going to have dinner with Justin Trudeau. Then he's up in Ottawa for the Three Amigos Summit. He's called for deeper North American integration. Is that a non-starter at this point?
good luck, amigo, because guess what? Even Hillary Clinton, expediently, is now against NAFTA, which is the treaty that integrates the Mexican, American, and Canadian economies. When Obama goes, even if Hillary wins, there's going to be a more isolationist American government, and Hillary will have to be very careful, though, because most Hispanics are going to vote for her. But I see this Three Amigos summit as sort of a sideshow. Obama's a lame duck anyway. He'll be gone soon. Justin's a newcomer. It'll be a nice opportunity for Justin to get some selfies taken, but since he is Prime Minister selfie.
Yeah.
So I think that this thing is a distraction. It's a sideshow. The real tragic circus is so far in the United Kingdom, and it's spreading into Western Europe, and through Trump, it's going to be a huge reality in the election.
I can tell you this. Brexit will make Britain great again. Ray, we got to leave it there. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.